I'm delighted to be here, and thank you, ServiceNow, for bringing us all together to talk about a really, really important issue, which is AI and its relevance to work and each and every one of us. My aim today is to simply get you to think. Okay, I have no slick demos and so on and so forth, but I want to leave you thinking deeply about some of these issues. You don't have to agree with me when you go out, though I want you to go out and make up your own mind. And to get you thinking, I'm going to start with a history lesson. Now, most of you are probably like me, where you absolutely hated history when you were studying it, because it seemed to be, by and large, memorizing dates and events and regurgitating them at the exam. And yeah, I hated it too. But as I grew older, I began to really appreciate and love history. Why? Because everything that we are experiencing has happened before. The context is different, the characters are different, but it has happened before, and therefore there are lessons to be learned. And as that little quote says, if we don't understand history, you're condemned to repeat its mistakes. So when we're talking about AI revolution, I want to take you back 300 years to the last industrial revolution, the first industrial revolution, which began in 1700 with the invention of the steam engine. And we all know what happened. So there was first the mechanization of through automated spinning machines and looms, and then it spread to agriculture. There was this huge wave of productivity, enormous wealth creation. But there was one problem. All the wealth that was created was appropriated by owners of capital and machines. And workers did really, really badly. So what happened to workers? Well, first of all, the skilled artisans who were making hand looms were thrown out of work. Then what happened were these really ugly factories that Charles Dickens and others wrote about, where the working conditions were so bad that an English male working in a Manchester factory had a life expectancy of 32 years compared to the average national life expectancy of 42 years. Over 50 years, people actually grew shorter because of the working conditions. Wages were depressed. It was nearly slavery. And so what happened? People began to resist. And there was this movement called the Luddites, which you may have heard of, where workers went around smashing these machines. Well, the capitalists quickly got together and said this is an offense that's punishable by death. And in 1812, 30 of them were hanged publicly, sending a chilling signal to anybody who was even thinking of protesting. So this is what happened, and it took 100 years before conditions improved. What changed was net new jobs were created. So the same automation began to create new opportunities, and there was new legislation with minimum wage, and so people started sharing in this prosperity, and the great English middle class was born. But it took 100 years, and in that 100 years, 3 generations of workers got crushed. Now, why is this important? Because it sounds like one scenario that could play out all over again. We could have the same inequality leading to the same forms of resistance. There are 3 lessons I want you to think about. The first is, when there is a new technology which is moving really, really fast, individuals, organizations, and society, they struggle to adapt. Given enough time, we can all adapt to anything. But when it's moving really, really fast, you can't adapt. And that's when the suffering happens. So since we can't slow down technology, it's always just speeding up, what we have to focus on is adaptation. The second important idea for every one of us to think about and know about is that technology can be deployed in one of 2 ways. Every technology, AI especially. You can use it to replace people and control people, or you can use it to augment human capacity, to increase human capacity, right? So those are your 2 choices. And what's interesting is the first industrial revolution was all about replacing people in the beginning. What is interesting is that the second industrial revolution, which was all about electricity and the internal combustion engine and cars and so forth, was actually labor complementing. You didn't hear about people losing their jobs by and large. And in fact, there was this great wave of prosperity in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, both in America and eventually all over the world. The same thing happened with the third industrial revolution, which is PCs and computerization and the internet. By and large, it has been labor complementing and resulting in greater prosperity. So this is a choice that we have, and it's based on policies that we enact, both at the national level and within our firms. And point number 3, again, is AI is not just a technology issue, not just a business issue. It is a societal issue, and all of us need to care about it. How it plays out is not just destiny and inevitable and decided by tech bros like Elon Musk, although sometimes it does feel that way. We have a choice in it. The decisions you take in your organization, in your teams, is consequential. And the key are 2 ideas. One is human-centric AI, or people-centric AI. And the other one is, what do we do for adaptation? And that's what I'm going to dwell on repeatedly. Now, I know many of you are technologists. You're deploying all these tools, you're CXOs and so forth. But all of us are first and foremost individuals. So I want to start by, what does this mean for us as individuals? What does it mean for you? How are you going to survive in this age of AI, and not just survive, but thrive and flourish in this age of AI? What do you need to do? And I'm going to suggest that there are 6 things that each of us has to pay attention to if you're going to do well. And the first is an obvious one. You have to learn to work with AI. We know that this genie is out of the bottle. Much as some people want to put it back in the bottle, that's not possible. It's going to grow bigger and bigger, faster and faster. We know it's going to destroy many jobs. We know it's going to create new jobs. But what is also certain is it's going to change every white-collar job. Every information worker, every knowledge worker, their roles are going to change. And so today, if you're not experimenting with AI, not using appropriate tools for your work, you're really at high risk. You're destined to fail. And if you're afraid that AI will replace you, it's good to be afraid. It's good to be concerned. But the most important thing you can do, the countermeasure, is starting to use it, because by now we've all read this phrase over and over again, that AI won't replace a human, but a human using AI will replace one who doesn't use it. So you better be the one using it, right? The second point I want to make is, again, it sounds so obvious and intuitive. If you don't want to be replaced by a machine, well, don't act like one. Who's saying that? A Nobel Prize winning physicist, 𝗵𝗫𝗔. And so we can never compete with machines on some things. The only thing we can do is become more and more and more uniquely human. Unfortunately, we are not taught that. It's sort of taken for granted. But I don't think any of us in school consciously learned to be what it is to be human. What is it? Well, there's some things which are particularly uniquely human, and I think it's going to be quite a while before AGI catches up to these qualities. One of them is empathy. What is empathy? It's the ability to understand another person's emotions and feelings and connect at the deepest level, right? And establish this bond of trust. How does that happen? It's not just through the spoken word. It's through facial expressions, body language. We are acutely sensitive to these things. So how do you learn to strengthen empathy? Another one is working with other people, collaboration, right? So as long as there are people around in the workplace and in society, I think we have a unique advantage when it comes to connecting and working with other people. Leadership, again, uniquely human quality. How do you inspire someone to voluntarily join hands with you and others to accomplish something? That is leadership. Again, uniquely human. Storytelling. Again, a human quality not found in any other species is the ability to imagine something and tell a story around it so that you get convinced. That's what we do in sales, right, Ganesh? We keep telling stories. So again, this is not going to be automated anytime soon. So these qualities are things that we need to now intentionally worry about and develop and strengthen. And if you want to know more about it, read my last book. The third important skill are adaptive skills. Now, everybody understands, look, I've got to learn new technologies and these new technical things. That's fine. But what is way more important are what are called adaptive skills. The story of the 21st century is one of extreme change. The world will change more in this 100 years than in all of human history. And what that does is create an enormous challenge for individuals, for companies, for countries, for all of society to adapt. And Charles Darwin, he explains it. He says, look, in nature, the fittest is neither the biggest, the strongest. It is the one that is most able to adapt to change. And we know what happened to dinosaurs, right? There was a sudden shock, and they were unable to adapt, and they went out of business. So you need to learn to adapt. Now, how do you learn these adaptive skills? You can't learn it in the classroom. It's not taught in your company. You don't even learn it in life. The only way we learn adaptive skills is through big challenges, shocks, and what are called crucible experiences. So what happens? So sometimes life throws you into a crucible experience. For instance, you lose a parent when you're young, and that's a shock. But what it does is forces you to quickly become an adult, become stronger. You lose a job. In the beginning, you're devastated by it. But then you decide, what should I do? Maybe I'll start a business. And you emerge out of that more successful, stronger. And so one of the things I do is encourage people to not wait for life to throw these challenges at you, but to voluntarily pick them. So for instance, take a new role completely outside your comfort zone. Move to another country and learn to adapt and flourish out there, or whatever, one of these sorts of challenges. So only by systematically going outside your comfort zone do you develop the growth mindset, self-confidence, leadership capabilities. But without these, in the 21st century, life is going to be really hard. For those of us who like predictability, okay, you don't like uncertainty, you like structured jobs, life is going to be really tough. Then, entrepreneurship. Again, most people I talk to think of entrepreneurship as a career choice. Well, some of us like jobs. Others like to be the master of our own destiny, like to build things, own your own business. And so we think of it as a career choice. That was in the 20th century. In this century, it's not a career choice. It's something far more fundamental. It's a survival skill. Every single one of us and every single person outside needs to have an entrepreneurial mindset and skill, regardless of whether you start your own business. Why do I say that? Because jobs of the sort that you have and I had are going to be relevant to fewer and fewer people. We see that all over the world. And not only that, even if you have a job, it's likely to be short-lived. Life increasingly is like musical chairs. You played that? Music stops, and suddenly you don't have a chair. And you can be a high performer in a great company and suddenly not have a chair. However, on the other hand, the good news is there's no shortage of problems in the world. The one thing that is growing rapidly is the number of problems waiting to be solved. And every one of them is an entrepreneurial opportunity for someone. So what we need to do is, whether you're going to start a business on your own or not, develop this entrepreneurial mindset, which is what? A very specific set of qualities. First of all, the ability to see problems and opportunities and seize them. There's a joke, actually, about what's the difference between an optimist and a pessimist. Some of you know that, right? An optimist sees an opportunity in every problem, and a pessimist sees a problem in every opportunity. So you want to train yourself to be that optimist. You want to be good at problem solving. You want to be able to be resourceful. Every entrepreneur starts off without any resources, but you have to bootstrap your way. So these are qualities that we need to learn. And the good news is, these are not things you're born with. These are things you learn like every other skill. So I run a not-for-profit organization called GAME. And one of the things we've been doing over the last 6, 7 years is, with our partners, running the largest entrepreneurship curriculum in the poorest government schools. So this morning, whatever what date is it? I can't even remember. The 18th? Thank you. The 18th, 1.8 million children this morning, standard 9 to 12, in 12 states, got up and learned how to study entrepreneurship as a compulsory subject. And we have seen the data and evidence over 6 years. It's absolutely fantastic. And if these children can learn it, you can learn it. And so you want to make sure that everybody is developing this entrepreneurial mindset. Penultimate point, mediocrity is professional death. Okay, my generation, which is the same as Ganesha's generation, had it easy. Okay, because what? Life was good. It was a rising tide. You had the internet, India opened up its economy, globalization, blah, blah, blah. And so even the most average person, if they just showed up, did fine, retired, lived a good life. That's not going to be the case going forward, okay? So if you're not excellent at what you do, there's a set of agents, a gaggle of agents coming for us. So how can you make sure you're excellent? Well, the only way I know is through a twist on this Japanese idea of ikigai, which is you better figure out what you love, what you're good at, what AI is not yet good at, and what the world is willing to pay you for. So you need to experiment your way and find the sweet spot and operate in that zone. And last is you need to build safety nets, because I don't want to sound negative or a doomsdayer, but every one of us is going to experience significant shocks. We're living in what's called a VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And we're going to see many, many shocks along the way. We all experienced one called COVID, and America is living through another one called Trump. So there's going to be more of these. And what you want to do is prepare yourself before it hits you. And how do you prepare yourself? Through managing your financial assets and having multiple income streams, not just your salary. And number two, even more, working on what I call your social capital. Do you have a professional reputation? Do people know what you're good at? Do you have networks? Do you have friends? Not the ones on Facebook, real friends, okay? And what else? Personal board, something I really, really encourage everyone. And you want to make sure you have all these things before something bad happens. Okay, so now I'm going to go to business, because that's what you came here for. Look, the most important point I want to make is this. You better have a clear philosophy when it comes to AI and embrace whatever philosophy intentionally. And the fundamental philosophical choice is, are you going to work with people, amplify people's capability, or are you going to work to automate mindlessly everything that you can automate? Okay? That's the basic choice. And it's not just a moral one. This eye chart, and Jillian was saying, you can't have so many words in small font. I don't expect you to read it. What I'm trying to just show out here is there is an enormous amount of evidence which says that when you work to empower people, strengthen their capabilities using technology, things are better. You create a better culture, and you end up with a competitive advantage that results in better financial outcomes, better customer satisfaction, better employee engagement, and all those good things. As I said, I like history. So when I took on this advisory role with ServiceNow, I said, who is ServiceNow? I remembered them as a different company. And then I said, Fred Luddy was the founder. And what is his founding vision? See, Microsoft's founding vision was a computer on every desk, in every home. What is ServiceNow's founding vision? It turns out to be making technology that serves people. That's why he came up with the word ServiceNow. Okay? So I started listening to Bill McDermott, the CEO's speeches. And he says, we succeed when we help people succeed. And it was very interesting to me. He didn't say we succeed when we help customers succeed, when we help businesses succeed. He said when we help people succeed. Okay? And I think these are not accidents. I think these are very intentional choices. Putting AI to work for people, same thing. So I think it is very, very crucial that your businesses consciously decide, are you going to work with this philosophy and that philosophy? I'm arguing one is superior to the other. And you make that public. You need to drive fear and anxiety out of the workplace. Because when people are worried, saying, you know, I'm supposed to implement this Now platform, but oh, by the way, they could replace me tomorrow, they're not going to exactly be highly motivated. Okay? If you want people to be excited and motivated, you have to remove this anxiety by declaring your intentions. The second thing I would say that you need to do is graduate quickly from lots of interesting experiments and use cases and pilots in every corner of the company to where you actually this year build a comprehensive strategy, especially a strategy for workforce transformation. I'm going to, in the interest of time, move quickly to just my second point. The single most important thing I would do today if I were an acting CEO like I used to be is triple my investment in workforce development. Triple it. And why would I do that? First of all, we've got very little time. This tide is moving extremely, extremely fast. And so you want to make sure every person in the organization is not just AI literate, but using lots and lots of the tools that are relevant to their role. But even more importantly is something that very few of us have thought about, which is this. Here's the pyramid in our organization. Okay, many of us in the middle. Now, what happens when you automate these things? It's the more entry-level work that gets automated fastest. Now, if all the entry-level people are going to be gone and they're just agents running around, where are the middle managers going to come? Where are you going to come from? Where is the future you going to come from? Where are senior leaders going to come from? Where is expertise and human wisdom and judgment going to come from? Right? So what do we have to do? The only thing you can do is move people along faster. That means we have to give people responsibility much faster, and we have to promote them much faster, which is good news, right? And so the metaphor I use is, in the past, we used to think about people moving along on an escalator in a mall. So they move along slowly over time. We're getting more responsibility and learning things. Now you've got to pack everybody into a lift and shoot them up. So this is going to require a dramatic amount of investment and some boldness when it comes to people decisions. The other thing I want to talk about is the fact that your technology platform may be ready, but in most organizations I see the culture is far from ready. And ultimately, the rate-determining step or factor is not technology. It's going to be your own culture. And so people talk about buzzword, AI-first culture. What is AI-first culture? It's nonsense. It's nothing but shorthand for the good old things. Risk-taking, experimentation, the willingness to tolerate some failures, move quickly, collaborate, radically collaborate, all those kinds of things. But you look up at the people in management, and how many of them are like this? Not many. So if you're going to create an AI-first culture, you have to start taking bets on the people who exemplify these attributes and have the courage to move aside those who don't. And the final point is this. Look, talent was always important, and the only thing I can predict confidently going forward is it's going to be even more important in the future. And so you want to be a magnet for talent. And so this employee reality as well as the employee branding, that look, young person, if you want to be in a place which is really about the future of work, we are the place to be. So you need to create that experience for employees, that sort of branding. The last point, and I see the timer is warning me that my time is up, is change moves at the speed of trust. The great teacher Stephen Covey said this. When people are afraid and they don't trust their leaders to do the right thing, they don't trust that their leaders are going to look after them, well, they're not, as I said, going to cooperate. They're going to find ways to resist actively or passively. And so you really do need to remove fear from the workplace. You do need to communicate transparently. You can't guarantee that people won't lose their roles. Okay? It's impossible to guarantee that. But what you can say is we're going to handle those transitions thoughtfully, empathetically, which is what I mean is that you really do need to provide safety nets. Safety nets are about retraining. Safety net is helping people, supporting people through their transitions, not just, as 𝗏𝗏 is doing, sending an automated email to them saying goodbye. So these are all very, very important things, but I think the soft factors will determine how fast you're able to progress. The last thing I wanted to say is think about your legacy. What do you want your legacy to be? We're all transient. We're here in our roles for a short time, and on the planet also for a short time. So how do you wish to be remembered? In 20 years, are people going to remember you for somebody who squeezed out a little more productivity? Or are they going to remember you as somebody who left behind a good company and a functioning society? And so don't just implement AI, humanize it, because in the end, the measure of leadership is not what you optimize, but how much you uplift people. So I hope I got you thinking, and there's no time for Q&A, but I'm around after this. I'd love to talk to you, but more importantly, join me on LinkedIn. And what Jill didn't say is I'm writing a book on AI. I'm hunting for use cases and people to make famous. So if you want to be famous, write to me. But thanks a lot again for having me here.